tuned in to the Andrew Lawton Show.
I had the chance to, at the Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference, sit down with Scott Aitchison. This was the day after the debate. It was great. I got to see Leslyn Lewis and Roman Baber as I shared my chats with them in the previous show, and also Scott. Now, Scott, I should say, not a front runner in terms of name recognition, but has run a really policy-heavy campaign that's touching on a lot of things like ending supply management, which I just so desperately wish other people would take up. I know it's like a strange hill to die on, but believe me, it's important. All of these free market people that were just twisting themselves into pretzels in Edmonton to say, well, maybe we don't need a free market when we're talking about dairy and poultry, but everything else, free market. But also on foreign policy, which we touched on a little bit in this chat. So this is my interview recorded in Ottawa with Scott Aitchison. Joining me now is Conservative leadership candidate Scott Aitchison. Scott, good to talk to you again. It's in person this time.
Great to be here, yeah. Thank you.
So let's start with the debate last night. This was the first official opportunity that almost all of the candidates were on stage together in this leadership race. I know there's a lot of prep that goes into it, but looking back now with a day's hindsight, what was your feeling about it?
Well, I spoke about it last night, actually, that there's a lot of division and a lot of rancor and sort of visceral partisan rhetoric back and forth and attacks, and I think that that's actually bad for our party. It's bad for our politics, and I tried to lead by example by being respectful, and I think we need to talk about ideas and not each other.
Now, I mean, your approach, and we heard this in your opening statement, was, and I'm crudely paraphrasing it, but it was, can't we all get along? I mean, you were really pitching unity. And is that enough of a message?
Well, certainly not for the whole race. I mean, I'm obviously talking about policy ideas as well. Last night, of course, we were responding to questions, but the questions, seemed to lead to every other candidate talking about each other, which was my point, that, we got to stop attacking each other, start talking about ideas, and, present those to Canadians in a way that they can trust us to lead and govern.
I know historically in leadership races or at the local level nomination races, you get these sometimes bare-knuckle brawls, but they're always done respectfully, and at the end of it, everyone shakes hands and work together. Is your concern that can't happen or won't happen after this race?
No, it can happen, but we have to choose to make it happen. I used to say this all the time when I was mayor of Huntsville. I led a council that was engaged, and we would have some knockdown, drag 'em out battles over issues in the council chamber, but we always would leave and we'd be friends. I would argue, you can disagree without being disagreeable. We'd often go for a pint after the council meeting just to say, you know what, we can be on different sides of an issue, but at the end of the day, we're all here to move Huntsville forward. And that's the same thing here. Like, we are all here. Every single candidate up there last night, they're not taking time away from their families and their lives to do this for just the good of their health or for their entertainment value. They're here because they really truly believe in what they're doing. They want to make our party better. They want to make our country better. So we need to stop attacking each other and focus on ideas, and that moves our party forward. It actually helps us expand the tent, and it helps us build trust with Canadians in those places where we haven't been winning and we need to win.
What are the ideas that you feel need to be front and center in the race that aren't?
Well, I think we need to be talking a little bit more about our foreign policy. Under the last 7 years of the Trudeau government, I think Canada, we're a bit of an embarrassment on the world stage. We're not a reliable partner. We need to be spending 2% of our GDP on our defense system. I mean, NATO. We haven't lived up to our commitments in NATO almost since the inception of the organization. And our allies are forming new partnerships and new alliances without us because we're just not showing up. And so we obviously need to spend more on defense, and we need to have a more principled stand on, issues like Huawei, for example. We need to ban Huawei. We got to stop dithering on these things. We got to stand up to countries like China and their communist regime and their bullying, and it's a security threat. We got to stop dithering on these issues. And so these are issues that I think conservatives can lead on and should be leading on. We should be talking about them. Canadians want to hear about these issues, but when we're just busy attacking each other, we're not talking about those ideas, and those are the things we need to be discussing.
So just on the defense funding there and NATO spending, do I take from that an Aitchison budget brings defense up to 2% of Canada's GDP?
Absolutely.
And when you talk about Canadian leadership, I mean, Canada failed to secure a seat on the United Nations Security Council after relentless lobbying and campaigning by the Prime Minister on that. I know there was a story in Bloomberg some time ago about how the Prime Minister was trying to be the one to broker the EU Northern Ireland deal, and again, no one was taking the call. No one wanted Canada to play a role.
The foreign minister, Melanie Joly, has talked about how our place is convening, but no one seems to want to sit at the table. So how do you restore Canada's legitimacy on the foreign stage when people have tried it? I mean, that was Justin Trudeau's big pitch, Canada's back. How do you do that, though?
Yeah, but Justin didn't really try it at all. He thought he could just charm the world with his name and, and that would somehow do something. We have to be a reliable partner. I mean, we need to live up to our commitments in NATO. We need to live up to our commitments on foreign aid. These are countries that are going to rely on Canada, and if they can't rely on Canada, no matter how much charm offensive Justin Trudeau does around the world, they're not going to care. And so, principled leadership and building the relationships that we need to build around the world. Prime Minister Mulroney was a master at it. He built relationships with world leaders all over the globe, and Canada had a really valuable presence and a voice in the world when he was Prime Minister because of the power of his personal relationships. We got to back up what we say with real dollars, real investment. We got to stop playing games with procurement for our military. The whole procurement for fighter jets has been a joke. It's been an embarrassment. The process to try to get the shipbuilding strategy up and going. Thankfully, Prime Minister Harper started that program, and now it's going. We need to maintain that now. I tell people, it's not rocket science, actually. Well, in some cases, maybe it is rocket science, but this is really no different than a municipal mayor putting together a procurement plan for a fire truck. I don't argue with the fire chief on how many pumps that truck needs. He tells me what we need to serve the needs of our community, tells me it's going to cost this much money and I need it by this date. And so we put money away, prepare for it, get ready, and we have a whole plan to replace that vehicle when the time comes. It's a capital asset management plan. Let's take the politics out of it and just get it done.
You mentioned China earlier. What would you take as your position on Taiwan, which has been, in a lot of cases, a sticking point where no one in the world, I should say few people in the world, are prepared to really deal with this head on?
Well, I think it's time for us to be honest. I mean, the one China policy it's not really true. It's not happening. Taiwan is a vibrant, democratic country. It's a market country, capitalist country. We need to recognize Taiwan for the beacon of freedom that it is, and I think it's time for us to recognize them. Taiwan has said they would like to be members of the World Health Organization. I think we need to recognize that. It's time for us to stop sort of dancing around that. That's another way that Canada can have a principled stance in the world. If we're going to be champions of freedom, then let's stand up for those countries that are crying out for their own freedom.
Now, would that basically be recognizing Taiwan as an independent sovereign state?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that a position that would be disqualifying to a large section of voters? I mean, we saw in the last election how there were concerns by some of your former colleagues that Chinese influence campaigns were being run against people for their positions.
I don't think that leaders take positions based on the politics of it. Leaders do what's right, even when it's hard.
Another foreign policy question. Would you relocate Canada's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem?
Absolutely. Israel is a most vibrant democracy. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's a vibrant multicultural nation. They are an important ally of Canada's. Jerusalem is the capital, and absolutely, our embassy should be there.
I know the interim leader, Candace Bergen, in her video remarks this morning mentioned that a flat tax is a policy that would be a legitimate, viable conservative policy. And I don't want to write your platform for you, but have you given any thought to some of these larger structural issues that deal in the tax system?
Yeah, we'll have a lot more to say about tax in the coming days. Obviously, what I have talked about so far is eliminating the carbon tax. Fundamentally, this comes down to affordability for Canadians. That's I think the most important issue we need to address. And if there are changes we can make to our tax system to help make life more affordable for Canadians, we need to seriously look at that.
I find that, in the past, this was something that the Conservative government under Stephen Harper did with a lot of the boutique tax credits, which certainly make for good politics, but at the end, I don't feel they simplify the tax system for large sections of Canadians. Is that something that you'd like to see, a tax system that's a lot simpler?
Yeah, simpler, but we really do need to do a proper review of it, right? You don't make tax policy, I think, on the fly. I think some thorough analysis and some real work going into it, and some thoughtful discussion about it is important.
So I guess one thing I'd ask you, just while you're here looking around at this conference, we haven't had one in the last 2 years because of COVID. What's your assessment of the state of the Conservative movement right now?
Well, I think there's some fault lines, but I think that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to talk about coming together. I said over and over again that unity isn't uniformity. We don't all have to agree. We don't have to all believe the same thing. We have to listen to each other. We have to respect each other. And I think Conservatives, the movement is they're craving that conversation. I was chatting with the organizers yesterday, and they didn't just sell out; they oversold. It's great. It's great to see as many people here as there are. They want to have that conversation. I think that those of us running in the leadership race should respect that and have a conversation instead of attacking each other.
Scott Aitchison, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.